But now we'll jump to Charles Tarbey. As always, he gives us the latest figures on the market. Welcome back to the show, Charles.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good to see you again.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Charles. Let's jump into the auction clearance numbers.
Yeah, been really strong again. It's just amazing how the marketplace really hasn't changed a great deal. Last year, the auction clearance rates were sitting in the 70s. I was sitting at a 74.6%. This week, they're sitting now at 71.7% clearance rates nationally, so really not a lot of difference, and that's the thing I'm most impressed about. It's still there. Again, in the areas we expect clearance rates to be strong. Sydney was 70.8%, Melbourne 77.7%, and Canberra came in at 75.4%. So the other capital cities were average in their performance, but really overall the clearance rates are still moving along very, very strongly in those same capital cities as we've come to expect.
And I guess the media's been fairly quiet. They're neither kind of claiming that there's a boom still going on or there's a bubble or a bust going on.
No, there's still a little bit of talk now starting to kick in. I was talking on radio earlier this evening, and we were listening to a report that came out about interest rates maybe moving up, people under mortgage stress, etc. And those things are very real. But no, there is no talk out there about the clearance rates. They killed us off about 3 months ago, but you'll probably notice that they won't be saying too much now. But I think we're still in for a strong time.
So maybe it's all the talk about these politicians that is keeping them off the property market and keeping us out of the news.
Okay.
Well, let's have a look at the homes advertised for sale.
Yeah, look, not a great movement here, but again, it is a movement upwards, albeit slightly. You can't even notice it on the chart when you look at it. But there was a 0.02% increase in stock this week over last week. So again, not a great deal, but it certainly is a few weeks of stock climbing leading up into the spring period. And the spring period, of course, is really when we're going to expect a lot more property to come on.
Wonderful. And how about the residential rent price movements?
Yeah, they actually went negative this week. Not in every capital city, but negative 0.24% for all capital cities in total. The one that still has had a couple of increases each week now has been Darwin, interestingly enough. They had an increase of 1.51% in their rent movement. So that's 2 weeks in a row. Perth came back a little bit because Perth's been travelling very strongly. Good to see the results there. Came back a little at 0.47%. But again, you know, this rent price movement, there's no skyrocket movement anywhere. It has declined in some areas due to an oversupply being Perth, vacancy rates, which I can talk about the numbers there as well.
Interesting you mentioned Darwin. I believe Tom Panos isn't joining us tonight because he's over there, so hopefully he's not moving the market. Yeah, I heard he was there tonight doing a seminar for a real estate company. He's doing talks for everybody, Tom. Exactly. Well worth listening to, however. Very well worth listening to. And finally, we've got the residential vacancy rates. Oh, look, this is an incredible story, what I'm seeing here. Melbourne has been beating Sydney for as many weeks as I can remember, and the vacancy rate for Sydney was 1.89%, but Melbourne came in at 1.01%. I mean, it's been incredible. But the one that really has inspired me a great deal, and again, you know what I'm going to tell you now, but this is the WA market, which I've been watching for a while. The lowest it's been for ages, 7.46. So there's definitely a movement in Perth. It feels as though the bottom of the market is there, and we're looking at some great results coming up. Nice, steady results, nothing fantastic, but that marketplace is somewhere that I'd be keeping my eye on for a while. Wonderful. Thanks for the update. Now, I thought I'd bring you in the conversation with Mary. Obviously, you run a whole chain of real estate agencies and pretty much all around the country. Now, no matter whether you're male, female, young or old, I guess there's always a role in real estate if you're willing to kind of put in the training and educate yourself. Yeah, and I'm a couple of those things, which you always remind me about. Look, I think real estate's a fantastic industry because even as the older you get, if you had experience out there, people will trust that. And when you're young in the industry, people enjoy the enthusiasm. And when I started in real estate at the age of 17 and a half, you know, I had to say to people, they'd say, well, what do you know? I said, well, I really don't know a lot, but I do work with people who do. And if there's anything I can't answer for you, I will find out for you from those people. So it's something that you can do all the way through for the rest of your life. Real estate is just a really fascinating industry that so many people are interested in because real estate represents wealth.
And it's probably an advantage being younger these days with all the advent of kind of Twitter and social media and all of these other things. Then people that have been in the industry for maybe 30 or 40 years are probably finding it harder to keep up with this, whereas someone that maybe hasn't got the residential or the real estate experience but is much more up on technology is potentially when they can overtake those older, more mature people, maybe, should we say, Charles?
Well, definitely technology has helped. I've kept up with it. I always was interested in technology, so it hasn't been a problem for me, and certainly still isn't. But there is an issue with technology, Chris, and that is a lot of the generations that are operating it are hiding behind it. You know, the most successful agents are the ones that will get out there and talk face-to-face, belly-to-belly, contact-to-contact, voice-to-voice with somebody. And that's what I'm inspired most about, as well as Perth market, of course, that I was talking about. And I think that the young and up-and-coming real estate practitioners need to stop hitting the reply button on their emails and pick up the phone and talk to some people.
Yeah. Any other tips on young people looking to get into the real estate business that obviously if they're investors, they want to spend more time talking about real estate? Is it effectively, do you need a massive knowledge about real estate, or is it like most jobs these days that it's actually more about sales and picking up the phone?
Yeah, look, it is about sales, but it's about resources, and it's about working within an organisation to have those resources, because things change all of the time. And I think it doesn't matter what age you are, if you understand and work in an organisation where you have access to resources, your clients will always appreciate that more than anything else. I think the energy is probably the most important thing. The energy, the attitude, motivation really kicks in, and I think if young people coming in the industry maintain that and recognise that when they have to answer a question, they don't answer it incorrectly because they need to answer it, they make sure that they can find out where the best result is to give the information to the person that's asking the question.
And again, it's like you mentioned before, Tom is one of probably the most well-known trainers around town. And again, a lot of the education out there doesn't necessarily cost a fortune, does it?
No, it doesn't. Education's everywhere now. I mean, when I first started in the industry, we were listening to American tapes or reading American books. There were no real trainers in Australia that were there. And Australia's got a substantial number of trainers that are world-class trainers. And many of them are focused around the transaction in a positive way. It's not like the old sales techniques. I always tell people in my organisation, if you have to deal with an objection, it means that you haven't really done your job correctly to start with, because there should be no objections. People should have all of the information they need to make the right decision.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for your tips as always, Charles, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you, Chris.
Now, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back soon with Property of the Week. We'll be back soon.